A white doctor actually asked a question, and this question is directly to Black Americans. This question is directly to Black people that are staying in the US. When I first of all looked at this question, I asked myself one simple question. An educated doctor, your job is to take care of your patients. You have signed that your duty is to save life, not to be throwing question. But you went ahead. The first thing you need to do is to ask these questions to just Black people. Because the last time I checked, even the question he asked is not only Black people that do this. Even some white people that we see their videos, especially on TikTok, they also do this. But because every single thing that is concerning Black is where the major issue is coming from, he has the right, the audacity, the effrontery, the temerity to ask Black Americans this question. And I so much love the faffle that he got from this question, because the first thing is TikTok automatically took down that video. But before that, a lot of people have given him faffle. His fellow doctors as well came to give him the right answer that he was looking for. He made it look as if he is not a racist. But let's watch so that you guys can tell me your honest opinion. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Sonia. Subscribe, like, comment, and share. Credit belongs to the original creators of every single clips and stitches we have in our today's episode. And I want to say a very big thank you to every single one of you watching my videos, dropping commentaries, subscribing, dropping super thanks, joining my membership. You guys are absolutely the best. I really appreciate. Now, with that being said, let's dive right into this video. I'll be back with commentaries.
I have a question, but I'm afraid to ask it because I don't want to be labeled as a racist.
No, you're not. What you're afraid of is your implicit bias at best or your actual racism at worst will be clocked for exactly what it is. And as you already stated, you have been on the receiving end of backlash, which is really scary and no one wants to be on the receiving end of. Because if you were afraid of actually being called a racist, you would not hop on this app of billions of users and put this question out into the atmosphere. You would instead, in over the 10 years of making this observation, you would just ask your patients this in the privacy of the room. And Dr. Mack, you certainly would not be asking this question in uniform with your name highly visible. To say you are afraid of being called a racist, but having that information out there it's not tracking here. But assuming you are asking in good conscience, I will bite. As a medical professional, you may or may not have heard of the term medical racism. When interacting with medical professionals, people of color are disproportionately on the end of negative health outcomes as a result of medical racism. There are so many disparities in the medical system that disproportionately and adversely affects people of color at a rate that is not seen in comparison to their white counterparts. I have never been a patient of yours, so I cannot speak for your patients. However, I imagine your patients of color, specifically your African American patients, are aware of the medical racism that exists within the medical field. And if they are in the ER alone, they are likely on the phone with someone they trust. It's probably a point of comfort for them to know that there is someone there on the other line in an uncertain environment that can advocate for them, maybe in a way that they cannot advocate for themselves, who will ask the questions that maybe they will not think to ask in that moment of distress. Again, I am not one of your patients, so I cannot speak to your patients who are doing this and engaging in this behavior. However, in the future, if you want to know the answer to a question, just go straight to the source and ask them. In the meantime, however, please take the opportunity to educate yourself on medical racism and how this impacts your patients of color, specifically your Black patients.
American community, and you do think that this is a thing as well. Why is this? Is this?
They don't trust you. It's not intrinsically you, but it is the healthcare system as a whole. If you go back and look throughout history, you will see, and I'm sure you know this through your studies, Doc, you will see that the medical community has widely misused and mistreated the Black community. So when they have someone on the phone with them, it is not because they're being disrespectful, likely. It may be from a place of medical trauma, the history of medicine and its actions towards the Black community. It could be the fact that they need moral support and a backup because of those long-standing history of mistrust. They may not have been to the doctor in a very long time. They may not have the support with them in the same city. So instead of coming to social media, definitely when it happens, just ask. Put those fears and issues to rest. And when a patient has that, when that happens to me, when I have a patient on the phone, I often ask them, hey, who's on the phone with you? Is it my mom? Is it your mom? Your dad, your cousin? And oftentimes they may have additional information for you regarding the patient that they may not be comfortable enough to share with you themselves. I highly encourage you to simply engage in conversation and ask questions. You might get an answer.
A couple of days ago, a content creator on this platform who also happens to be an emergency physician asked a question to their large audience of more than 500,000 people, and I'm paraphrasing, why does it seem as though many African American patients often have people on their phones when they, a doctor, enters the room? Now, before I begin, I want to remind you that this platform that I've created has a core purpose of education, and I am not here to demean or embarrass anyone. I do not believe that that creates a path for understanding and liberation from ignorance. I would also like to say that if you are a person of color, a person who is marginalized, or a person who is othered in any way, shape, or form, and in professional and social environments, you are tasked with the job of educating others about your lived experience, I just want to remind you that that is not your job. You are never required to educate those around you about how systemic structures of hatred affect your life. Education without fair and appropriate compensation is an oppression of your time, and I think everyone should know that. As an example, I have a degree in medicine. I am a board-certified emergency medicine physician. I also have a master's in business administration. I've also, in my free time, built a relatively large social media platform based off of my interests in medicine and diagnosis. And I also happen to be a correspondent on a national televised platform. Can you imagine how frustrating and annoying it might be to walk into a room and for my experience, my training, my talent, my education to be reduced to questions simply asking me about the color of my skin? Which is why my price to answer that question is very high, to accommodate the value of my time. But today's education for you is free. Congratulations. Now, there are many reasons why a patient, might have someone else on the phone with them during a medical encounter. If I notice a pattern like that with my patients, I would ask them. But you should also know that hospitals, and emergency rooms specifically, can be a dangerous and frightening place for people of color. As an example, there are numerous studies that show Black Americans are systematically undertreated for their pain compared to their white counterparts. And unfortunately, that is not required medical education, which is why it is one of my firm beliefs that we continue to have a difficult time within medicine addressing racial bias, addressing acts of medical violence, and also simply repeating history. But thanks to the incredible education and leadership of those working within diversity, equity, and inclusion, more and more people are understanding important historical references which we must never forget. For example, the Tuskegee syphilis experiments of the 1930s. If you're not aware of this, you should Google it. But you don't even have to look that far back historically to understand references of racial bias within medicine, research, and science. For example, in the early 1990s, 34 young Black and Hispanic children were recruited for a study to understand the connection between race and aggression. In this study, these children were given IV medications called fenfluramine, which was later withdrawn from human use due to its deleterious effects on the heart. The point of this study, again, was to study the connection between race and aggression. Only Black and Hispanic children were recruited for this study. And just several years ago at the University of Virginia, researchers surveyed 222 white medical students and residents regarding their beliefs about Black patients. The results? Nearly 60% of students thought that our skin was thicker, and approximately 12% believed that our nerve endings were less sensitive compared to white patients. And this is only a small percentage of the education needed to fully understand how the mistreatment of marginalized communities has created fertile ground to plant the seeds of mistrust, leading to people pulling out their phones to have someone else in the room during a medical encounter. But what's also important is that when someone asks me a question revolving around race, I am listening very closely to how that question is asked, and I am thinking very critically about why that question was asked, and I'm also categorizing that person on where they fall on the stages of learning racism. Years ago, I published an article titled The 4 Stages of Learning About Racism, an adapted version of the stages of competence, because I find it to be very useful, and I think that many of us fall on these 4 stages. Stage 1, the unconscious incompetent person. This person is unconscious to racism, meaning they are not aware that it exists, and they are incompetent to practicing anti-racism, meaning that they cannot do it. Now, this person will likely need a lot of time understanding the history of racism, its existence, whom it affects, and why it's important. Now, many would say, stop here, don't go on with the stage 1 learner, it's too much work. But personally, I believe that there are many people that possess tremendous amounts of empathy, education, awareness, and ability to quickly adapt. So there are many times when an interaction with a stage 1 learner can be a pleasant one. Stage 2, conscious incompetence. This person is conscious, aware of racism, but incompetent to practicing anti-racism. This is the person that might say, sure, I'm aware that racism exists, but there's nothing I can do about it. Now, a stage 2 learner can be a tricky experience and sometimes a waste of my time. I'll use examples, for example, the civil rights movement, and I'll ask what they believe of those who did not actively participate in the civil rights movement to assess if they believe that complacency is a problem. And from there, it can go uphill or it can go straight downhill, and you just simply realize that that person is just deliberately ignorant and in fact racist themselves. Stage 3 is conscious competence. This person is aware that racism exists and actively working to fight against it. Now, this can be an incredibly pleasant experience, but there are times, however, where that person would task those around them, specifically people of color, with continuing their education, and unfortunately, that can be a waste of our time. Stage 4, unconscious competence. This person acts without thinking about it. Their skills of anti-racism are built into their everyday actions. They use their privilege to ask the uncomfortable, annoying questions. For example, why is this office so white? But many believe that this stage doesn't truly exist simply because of the structural effects of systemic racism that exists around us and informs our decisions. Now that I've taken you through my mini assessment on interpersonal education on the value of my life, I'd like you to understand something very important. Could you imagine what I could do with my time if I didn't have to do this on a daily basis? If you're truly looking to understand racism, whom it affects, and why it's important, now is the time to move beyond simple postures on social media. If you really want your questions answered, you need to buy a book, you need to look it up, use that information to call out your racist family members, call out your racist coworkers, educate your children. It's time for you to do the work. Okay, let's talk soon.
African American people are currently and have historically been mistreated and
So go back first and watch his original comment, basically questioning why Black patients come in and have somebody on the phone when he, as a white male physician in the emergency room, comes in to speaks to them. Because the answer here is a question that did not need to be asked if he had thought about it for 2 seconds, because we all know it's a safety issue. We know that white physicians, like myself, put our Black patients at risk day to day. And the situation is multifactorial. So white doctors out there, like myself, you need to be part of the solution. We owe it to all patients to not put them at risk just because they present to us. But this can only happen if you can recognize the fact that you have an inherent bias, and that just is a statement of truth. You don't have to subscribe to anything. You don't have to be, quote, openly racist to have that. It is by virtue of the fact that you have not lived the Black experience that you put patients at risk. And we know that because the research is there to back it up. And all you can do is actively work to reduce that by investing time and energy into understanding the problem and how you can be part of the solution. For me, myself as a family doctor, this goes back to my medical school training and seeking out Black physicians who were willing to train me, and doing so in Black communities. And in doing that, understanding that that is a privilege, not a right, and being there to listen to the patients and their needs, not to tell them what their needs were and how to live their lives. I did this for months and months on end as a very happy fly on the wall and such an appreciative fly on the wall, because I knew I needed to learn skills and have an understanding of a population that was at high risk and that was different from myself. I also did months of training in Hispanic communities because there's a large Hispanic population where I live. And I went and I sought out physicians speaking in the native language to their patients to hone in my skills, and also, again, to be a fly on the wall that was happy and appreciative to be there to learn. And there are many other minority communities that I went and I sought out rotations in for those reasons. Because if as a white physician, you do not walk into a room with a Black patient every single time, knowing that you put their lives at risk and have heightened alert to that fact, you are part of the problem and you are a reason why this problem propagates. So actually I've sat on this post for a few days because I wanted to make sure my message was very clear and that I respect Black creators who are talking about this space. And those are the people you need to be listening to about this subject. Big shout out to She's Having a Baby for helping me work through this. And she reminded me of a really important thing that I want to call out here very clearly. This is a call to action for physicians and healthcare providers to listen to your Black patients and their families about their needs. And they say something is wrong, believe them. We were trained to do for all of our patients, but somehow, in particular with our Black patients, we forget this. The burden falls on the physicians to fix the problem, not to ask Black patients to change their behavior. And it is not the responsibility of Black creators out there to teach us, but there are some who are doing a damn good job at doing it because they care so deeply for their community and the needs of them. So if you're not following people like She's Having a Baby or Dr. Callie, you're really missing the boat here. And if I am getting this wrong, please call me out. Please let me know, because I don't want to be furthering this problem. I would like to be part of the solution. So healthcare workers, we have a long way to go. And if you want to get on board and help with the solution, start doing the learning you need. I will keep doing the same. If you have other Black creators I should be following to learn more on this subject or any subject that you feel is important for that matter, drop me a comment and I will go follow them. And to the guy originally stitched, Dr. Callie took her time to try to help you learn where your blind spot was and how to rectify that problem. And instead, you doubled down with a not sorry post. Do better.
A large percentage of my African American patients have someone that's there in the room, even though.
Hey, Dr. J Mac. It's really simple. The reason a large percentage of the African American population has somebody on the phone or on FaceTime when you come in to do a history and physical is simply to bear witness. You, as a white male, do not have to worry about that because you are going to get taken seriously. You're not going to face any racial bias, any racism, whereas African Americans, well, I don't need to go into the details, but I think you get it.
My husband and I were having a conversation last night about how we approach patients when we walk into their room and they're on the phone. And this is because of that video that we saw that has been going viral on TikTok about this EM doc who was asking on TikTok about why Black people are always on their phone. And I realized that my approach, and I don't know if this is a lot of Black doctors' approach, but this is my approach. Whenever I walk into a patient's room and they're on the phone, I immediately want to engage whoever is on the phone with them. I recognize that, a lot of patients, they don't come into the hospital as soon as they start having symptoms. They come 3-4 days later. And sometimes I like to ask, what makes you decide to come today as opposed to 2-3 days ago? And a lot of times patients are scared. The emergency room is a scary place. And you find comfort in having family, friends, your loved ones on the phone with you. And those family members would love to be in that room asking conversation, engaging in conversation, and they're not able to be there for whatever reason. And the next best bet is to be on the phone. So when I walk into my patient's room and they have somebody on the phone with them, I'm immediately asking, who do we have on the phone with us today? What's their name? That way I am a little bit more personal with whoever is on the phone so that I can engage them in the conversation. And whenever I'm done having the conversation with the patient, I am asking the person on the phone, like, hey, do you have any questions for me? I just think that it is so crazy to get on the internet and ask a group of people, you know, such a disingenuous question about, oh, why are you always on the phone? And if you really want to know why these people are always on the phone, it's very easy to walk into a patient's room, and after you finish having that conversation, or let me even take a step back. I'm pretty sure that you've encountered Black doctors. So if you are really genuinely wanting to know why a certain population of people do a certain thing, it's really easy to go directly to the source and like ask your question in a genuine way, and not get on the internet and say, I've gone viral before, so I feel like I'm gonna go viral with this, but I'm still gonna ask. Like, that's not a genuine way to ask your patients, especially when you're supposed to know, because I can't say you know, but especially when you're supposed to know that the history of how Black people are treated in medicine. And it's a big part of the reason why, even though residency is tough and it is a very, very delayed gratification for me, I have to work hard and I have to stay here because my people need me. And I have to do whatever it takes to make sure that my people are seen and that they're heard, and that whoever's on the phone is also being treated. Because at the end of the day, you're not just treating the patient, regardless of how you feel. You're not just treating the patient, you're treating the patient's family. You're giving family the peace of mind, and you're updating family as you go. And there's a lot of times where we're calling family to say, hey, here's what's going on. Here's, you know, what we did today, how we did it. And I understand that the emergency room can be a very busy place and you don't have time to do that. But you're treating patients and you're treating family, and that's just how it is.
There's a white doctor that's asking why his Black patients are always on the phone while being treated or recording. His comment section is full of racist comments, and that's why. The Tuskegee Airmen told me that y'all was injecting them with syphilis. That's why. Y'all use bigger needles on us because y'all say our skin is thicker. That's a lie. That's why. During the development of GYN, you poked at our vaginas for hours on end without any anesthetic because you said that we didn't feel it because our skin was thicker. That's why. You didn't forget how y'all sterilized the women of Puerto Rico? That's why. Black women have the highest mortality rate during childbirth. That's why. Y'all don't administer pain meds because y'all think we're addicts. That's why. Oh, and y'all wonder why the opioid epidemic affected y'all the way it did. Y'all don't understand AAVE, so the barrier causes agitation. The agitation causes us to be confined to a mental institution. My sister was sick for a year, resulting in her being gaslit for a year, resulting in her losing 100 pounds. They kept sending her home, and one of her appointments, they said, you just have a stomach virus for 6 months? That's why. Y'all injected cancer cells into the people of Puerto Rico. That's why. He did it because he was mad he had to be in Puerto Rico. I mean, y'all had us in chains. And don't get me started to how they treat you when you have an invisible disability. Oh, and my sister had to find her own diagnosis. I know you were taught to check your implicit bias. Why you not applying it? Y'all gave incarcerated Black men in Philly herpes and exposed them to chemicals. That's why. This is my Undergo lash pack. You get 6 lashes for $16. Yeah. We don't trust you. That's why. Anyways, I'm cute. Bye.
Also, my quick commentary on that doctor who was talking about, I've been a medical doctor in the ER for 10 years, and why are black people on the phone? Because of medical racism, you fucktard. What is wrong with you? What is confusing about that? When my mom died in the hospital, bro, my sister was there for every motherfucking step of the way, bro. And she was there all the time because medical professionals don't listen to black people. We all know that. We've all seen the antiquated books where they think black people can handle high tolerance of pain and we're just trying to be doped up. Instead of listening to the fucking people and asking questions, you want to come on here and act cute and then give a bullshit white apologies if you didn't know better. You're a fucking doctor, bro. How are people supposed to have faith in the medical system with people like you doing that bullshit, man? Actually really pissed me off and struck a fucking chord. I'm so tired of white people doing this stupid shit and playing dumb and giving a bullshit apology, man. Cut the check.
In England, British doctors don't really diagnose you. They just kind of want to make sure you aren't dying immediately. And then the whole thing is sort of like a triage system. I've always said the biggest difference between how American doctors and British doctors practice medicine is that American doctors aim to investigate what's going on, what is happening, what are the specifics. And I couldn't think, okay, what are British people doing until you ask this question, and it's a triage system, which makes sense because there's no funds to actually help you extensively. I'll use myself and my arthritis as an example. In the UK, I've gone to my GP 3 times trying to get in physical therapy. And the GP just asked general questions just for the sake of putting it on a referral. And then once I got to the actual physical therapist, The first time, no lie, they gave me a sheet of paper with stretches and said, do these daily. The second time, I was completely lost in the system. No one ever contacted me. The third time, I had to cancel the appointment they gave me, and then I never heard anything again. A couple days ago, when I went to my American doctor, he asked me such specific questions that made me really think, okay, what is going on with my knee? Is it sharp? When you lean to the left, does this happen? When you do this, what type of pain? How about when you do this very specific? Like, and as he was asking the questions, he was like, you could see he was going into his medical school and he was investigating. He was like, okay, and how about this? And he really, and it was like a back and forth conversation. Whereas in the UK, they don't have time. they ain't got the time for that because they're underfunded and someone else is waiting. So it was a back and forth. And then after he investigated with questions, that's when he put me on the treatment chair and he started manipulating my knee and listening to it. And it's crazy because I had shoes on. He took he was like holding my foot by the shoe and he was like bent. He was in his investigation mode. Then he wrote down the very specifics, and I was reading the terminology. I don't know. It was obviously medical terms of what the knee bending meant. And then he put me in for a specialist, and then he also ordered me to get x-rays. Wow.
Yeah, here we go again with another stupid question. I'm sure you've all seen it by now. It's on TikTok. His video's been removed. There's this white doctor that wants to know why African American people of color are on their cell phones while he's examining them. Ooh, so much to say, so little time. But of course, I'm going to start with a question. Why does that bother you? I noticed in your video, you didn't say anything about your concern that maybe they might miss vital information, or you didn't go into anything about how you asked them to repeat what you said to make sure they have an understanding of what you're talking about. So from that, I surmise that you and your superiority supremacist role have a problem with Black people not giving you their full attention. Well, we've done that and we don't want to do it anymore. You are not that important to us when you're standing in front of us. Also to remember, there's a Google, for us to give you our undivided attention. You know, there's things you could have also said. You could have said, oh, you're busy right now. Let me know when you're ready to discuss. Maybe not. They would have told you just to go ahead because, yeah, we can listen. Because we've had to listen to white people out of our lives. So I would just guess, well, I know that you're just bothered because you're not the sage on the stage. You're not the center of attention. They're not holding you on this upper level of supremacy. They're not giving you the kudos that you so much want. You want them to just look at you and say, hang on to every word, like what you're saying they can't Google. Now let's get to the rationale and the reason why we don't pay you any attention. Number one, Google is free. And I might go out of order because I do have a lot to say. You all don't care about us. You don't care about us. You experiment on us. You laugh at us. You talk about us. You don't treat us like you treat your white patients. The only thing beneficial to you for taking care of treating us is that you get paid for it. Yet another reason is so that we can tape. Oh, and for all you white people, whatever you do for a living, just know that Black people have their phones and they have it on, even if they have it on record. So you best watch what you say. We need to record what you're saying and what you're doing. Are you scared that what they're recording on you? You assume that they're on their phone talking to someone, but they could be FaceTiming and that person could be listening to everything that you're saying. Are you scared of someone playing back the video and it not being in your favor? I see that your page got so much, or you or whoever got so much backlash from that very, very stupid question. Like, why would you even ask a question like that? Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I know I've already said it. It's because you're not the sage on the stage and you're not the center of attention and we don't care.
Hey, Janine. Yes, I noticed the video is unavailable now. So the doctor's question was, why is it that Black people like to have friends or family on the phone during doctor's appointments? Since I've decided to delete the original video because I don't want grounds to get banned, I'm going to go ahead and answer the question here. So over the years, people of color have experienced a lot of maltreatment in the healthcare system. We're often disregarded or dismissed when we talk about pain or ailments under the assumption that we're just after, getting medications and so forth. Did I say that like PG-13? Okay. We are another people that have been experimented on and abused to the point where we don't trust the healthcare system. Literally. There are studies out there that claim we don't feel pain. So of course we're not going to sit there and just trust any doctor that smiles in our face.
Hello. This is Abby, your nurse and NP preceptor. How are you guys doing? I hope all is well. Today I'm going to be taking a little diversion from my normal content and just kind of ask a question, very legitimate question. A doctor posted on here about why is it when he goes into the examination room, I think he's an ER doctor, that his African American patients are always on the phone, or somebody else is always listening on the phone when he goes into the room. And there was this a lot of people commented and said, why didn't you ask them, as opposed to coming on, because he should know, as a provider, he should know about medical racism and everything else that goes in, into that. And we are all taught about that. By the way, that's not really, they don't really emphasize that much they didn't emphasize it that much in NP school, and it's not really emphasized in nursing school either. So most of that, you have to learn it on your own. Okay. So my question is, as a provider, already, how do you, because I did ask that question on a couple other people's content who was asking, who responded to him. As a provider, how do you ask that question without making the visit uncomfortable after that? Now you could say, oh yeah, well, maybe you're uncomfortable because you have your own biases and all that, but not necessarily the case. I like to broaden a topic. I like to say, okay, after all the hoopla has died down, now what? How do you ask that question? How do you make a provider comfortable enough to ask that question to where the provider doesn't make the patient uncomfortable? Because that's the most important thing. They'll make the patient uncomfortable, because if I'm asking you that and I ask that question and I say I'm legitimately asking to get a better understanding of why it is that you have somebody on the phone when I come in here and all that. So again, like I said, most of the time you have like 5 to 15 minutes in the room with the patient. So how do you, ask that question and then say, okay, now how do I make you trust me more? So that has to be like an open and a conversation. Even as a nurse, you go into the room, in the patient's room and all. How do you ask that question without making everything uncomfortable? And sometimes the patient's in a room with another patient too. So how do you do that? That's where most health facilities, nursing facilities, and schools need to really be able to say, yes, we have a problem, but how do we tackle that? How do we make it in real life to where you can sit there and say, yes, I'm supposed to know how to do this, but how do I do this? That's why patient teaching, provider teaching, and nursing teaching comes into play. And even it's not just that, you talking about a whole gamut of people who are in the room, the social workers, occupational therapists, other providers that go into the room, social workers and all that, because most of the time too, there would be people on the phone. So how do you approach that without making the conversation uncomfortable, by making the patient uncomfortable, and also to facilitate a better visit? Because at the end of the day, the visit is the most important thing. So I'm just asking that. And I'm not asking this because I'm not aware of everything else that goes on with medical racism and all that. I'm just asking an honest question, because I'm sure there's some people who are in my shoes, who are other people who don't look like me, are asking the same questions like, now what? Because I would love to ask my patients that, but how do I go about doing that without making them feel uncomfortable and without compromising the visit? I hope everybody takes this honestly, because I would really like to know that. It's an open conversation for everybody, whether you're in the health field or anywhere, in patients, family members, other disciplines. I would like to have that answer. Okay, thank you. And I don't engage in TikTok drama, so please understand where I'm coming from with this. Thank you.
What up, Nurse Gang? What up, TikTok? So today on Nurses in the News, headline reads, settlement over Eddie Bernice Johnson's death may involve her original career as a nurse. Now, if you don't know who Eddie Bernice Johnson is, she was the first nurse voted into Congress more than 3 decades ago. She died this weekend as a result of an infection that she got at Baylor Scott and White Rehabilitation Facility in Texas. She was sitting in her feces and urine for hours, and it caused an infection to her lumbar wound. Now, let's get into this, because we're going to go down a rabbit hole. Let's take a deeper look. The family of former Dallas Congresswoman Eddie Bernice Johnson is negotiating with Baylor Scott and White over alleged medical neglect that the family claims caused her death.
Johnson was 89 when she died on New Year's Eve. Her lawyer hopes attention to her death and settlement help other families avoid tragedy. The settlement may involve her career as a nurse. Although Johnson broke barriers throughout her life, her lawyer claims it was medical neglect that took her life. It can happen to anybody, whether they're a congressperson or not, he said. I've probably represented clients suing every major hospital in North Texas. At the Baylor Scott and White Institute for Rehabilitation, her family says Johnson was recovering from back surgery when she was left in a filthy bed for more than an hour. Now, this part is interesting. Her son Kirk said he had been with his mother most of the time, but left and returned to see a shocking situation. Most patients will receive good care and be fine in hospital or rehab settings. He said, most of us will sleep in the room with the loved one or have someone in the family in the room with the loved one, he said. It's important for family members to be the squeaky wheel. Now, the reason why we're going down a rabbit hole and why this is so important is over the last few days on social media, we all seen the video that Dr. J. Mack, who is an ER physician, posted saying he doesn't understand why Black people always have someone on the phone with them while they're in the hospital, his Black patients, and he wanted some insight. Let's take a look at his clip.
I have a question, but I'm afraid to ask it because I don't want to be labeled as a racist. I've backlash before online, and it's horrible. But here we go. I've been an ER doctor for 10 years now, and a significant amount of my African-American patients, while I'm doing a history and physical to understand better what's going on with their problem today, they have someone on the phone. They're either just talking on the phone or they're on FaceTime, but a large percentage of my African-American patients have someone that's there in the room even though they're not there in the room. Why is that? When I, myself, not speaking for an entire race or ethnicity, have a doctor come in, I hang up my phone. Am I an outlier, or is this a trend that other people have recognized? Also, if you are from the African-American community and you do think that this is a thing as well, why is this? Is this for emotional support? Is this to make sure that they're being treated fairly? I genuinely am curious, and I'm really hoping I don't get backlash for this.
There's your answer, Dr. J. Mack. They have someone on the phone for a witness. It's not just emotional support, someone to be an advocate and someone to be a witness. So things like what happened to Rep. Bernice Johnson doesn't happen. What are your thoughts, Nurse King? Let's talk about it.
To the white doctor who doesn't understand why Black people stay on their phones when they are in the ER, you actually answered your own question at the end, but allow me to help elaborate. People stay on their phones so that they have an advocate, a friend, a support system. People stay on their phones because they can't trust you to do your job, as evidenced by you asking the internet instead of your patients, if there's anything you can do to make them more comfortable. People stay on their phones because patients get essayed in hospitals. People stay on their phones because if you are Black, you are not going to receive the same care as your pale counterparts. Maybe knowing someone else is there on the phone listening will get, the doctor to take them seriously and run the dang tests. People stay on their phones because it's scary to go to the doctor and it's scary to be in the ER. People stay on their phones because they need community and support. People stay on their phones because doctors like you make videos like this about them. People stay on their phones because we can't trust you. And it's terribly sad that we can't trust the people that are supposed to be there to help us feel better or manage symptoms. I can't tell you the number of disabled folks I know who vehemently avoid the ED at all costs, would rather suffer at home than go in for something that is an emergency because they know the quality of the care they will receive. And I can't tell you the amount of times I have seen people give advice on how to get a doctor to take you seriously, the amount of times they've told you how to dress, how to act, who to bring, what paperwork. Don't act too smart. Don't act like you know too much about it. Be friendly, be pretty, put on a little bit of makeup, but not too much makeup. And all of this information is widely available. I know that doctor is clout chasing, and there's a reason that I didn't actually stitch his content and that I am just making this because I'm hoping that some of my followers can learn from this, that perhaps some of you didn't know that these are things people face when they go to the doctor, when they go to the ED. Because it is hard and it is terrifying to be Black and to be disabled and to need care. Because you don't know if you're going to get it, and you don't know if they're going to do it right, and you don't know if they're actually going to take you seriously enough that you will get to live. Yeah, that's all.
Anyways, welcome back, guys, and thank you so much for staying stick till now. Now, you can see what this white doctor, the question he actually threw to Black people. Like I said from the onset of this video, it is not only Black people that literally go ahead and turn on their camera whenever they are at the hospital, right? But this man literally tagged a question directly to Black people, and to make the question more annoying, he said, let it not look like he is a racist, but Black people, why do you guys do this whenever you are in the hospital, whenever they are attending to you, and so on and so forth? And you guys have heard a lot of different answers that has actually come true from doctors, nurses, and even casual people like us, because we've literally seen scenarios of people literally suffering, especially because of the fact that they are Blacks. Now, can we refer back to the video that actually went viral last month, where you see this woman was literally in labor, and you can see this white nurse, whatever, is so interested in her documentation more than the woman that is actually in labor. Now, imagine a scenario whereby that was actually not captured on camera, wouldn't have actually seen what is actually happening. And that is now bringing a lot of more attention to Black people, that whenever you go to the hospital, especially you have a white person attending to you, you have to be very, very careful. You have to also make sure you place your camera at the right position to capture every single thing. Because I feel like that particular camera these doctors and nurses are seeing is not making them knowing that, oh, there's an awareness somewhere. So if they want to do A, they will decide to do B. They will decide to start doing their job as it's supposed to be. This woman literally gave birth. I think you guys saw that video that I did. 7 minutes, still on the chair, she's sitting down, because this white nurse, this white racist, said she is doing her proper documentation. We've seen different scenarios of videos as well, where you literally see, there's a particular video I did that was, I think, last 2 months, where you literally see this lady screaming, this Black lady screaming and shouting at white doctors because they were not attending to her father. They were not, sorry, not her father, her mother. They were not attending to her mother. Instead of them to come take care of the mother as they are supposed to do, they were literally not attending to her. They keep giving excuses, east, west, north, and south, until she decides to shout, put it on camera, call the attentions of other people, and you see them running in as if they now know what they are doing. So there are a lot of scenarios out there that is making a lot of Black people not even comfortable, if not condition that will make crayfish bend. A lot of Black people are not even supposed to be attended to by some white doctors. Why I'm saying some is because I know that out of so many, there are also good ones out there, because I've seen doctors that are speaking in favor of Black Americans. I've seen doctors that said, I really do not mind even if they are putting on camera. I know my job, I know what I'm doing. So there's a video I actually brought as well, where you see this white doctor asking this Black boy if he has literally brushed his teeth, if he has taken a shower, and how he needs to clean his skin very well because the skin looks dirty. This is a white doctor that is supposed to attend to a patient, asking patients such kind of questions. Now imagine that this particular guy, or the person sitting with this guy, did not record it. How are we going to know what is happening? A lot is already happening in the society, especially for the fact that if you are a Black person, you need to think twice in whatsoever you're doing and wherever you're going, so that you don't end up seeing people asking you stupid, nonchalant questions that they are not supposed to ask. So when next you see a Black person turning on camera, just know that they are not comfortable with you. Secondly, they also want to make sure they document every single thing so that nothing will go wrong. We've seen different scenarios where a lot of people lost their life. They lost their life out of doctors' carelessness. They lost their life out of doctors not taking care of them. So for this doctor to come up and ask this question, and he was thinking that this question will actually be like a favorable question to him, and at the end of the day he got his axe whooped. Not only that, TikTok took down the video and so on and so forth, is quite a shame. But anyways, you guys, let me know what you think in the comment section. Credit belongs to the original creators of every single clips and stitches we have in our today's episode. If you haven't subscribed, what are you waiting for? Do well, subscribe, like this video, drop me your comments, and lastly, do not forget to share for every other person to get this good news. And yes, guys, with that being said, with no further ado, I do like I always say in my videos, I'm going to be saying bye, and I'll see you guys in my next one. And I want to say a very big thank you one more time for every single one of you liking my videos, dropping commentaries, subscribing, supporting the channel, joining my membership, dropping super thanks. I really do not take you guys for granted. You guys are absolutely the best, and I can't take any of your kindness for granted. But last talk before I go, Black Americans, keep owning that camera whenever you find out that your environment is not conducive for you. Keep pulling out your videos so that at the end of the day, a lot of them will not know that we are not in that era where we can literally just keep quiet and see things just happen, and then later we'll not start shouting at dino. You understand what I'm trying to say? And I've said it countless times that if this was what our forefathers were doing, I feel like a lot of them wouldn't have just have no reasons to just die, or a lot of them will have a lot of experience to share to us. So do not stop, do not stop. I'm sorry if you're hearing any cry or noise from the background. My neighbors' babies, they are crying. Bye. Love you guys.